So, hello and welcome to the new segment of Gamers District channel. This is called the Cheapskate Guide to PC Gaming, and I am your host, Leon. So, a lot of people have been saying that PC gaming is a very, very expensive thing to do, and therefore people take that as reason to pirate games. So what I say is, no. You can be a cheapskate and you can play really, really good games at the same time, and that's what this guide is going to be all about. It's going to be an episodic series and me running through you one of the best free-to-play games out in the market right now that you can play for absolutely nada. You can download it for free, get it online, play with your friends, and have a ball. So as you might already figure out, there's one game that I'm going to talk about today, and I really, really like this game. This game is called Warframe. For those of you who don't know, Warframe is a third-person co-op shooter game, so where you basically play as this near extinct race of humans called the Tenno, who use Warframes to fight the other people. So, like their enemies like the Grineer and the Cronus. I like to put it in a simple way of saying it. It's like StarCraft. You're the Protoss, and you have enemies like the Grineer, which are typically just Terran Marines, and you'd have the Infested, which are like the Zerg. So you're typically just playing a third-person version of StarCraft, but it's really, really, really good, as I'm going to talk about it. So some information about the game before I get into it. The game was developed by Digital Extremes. For those of you who don't know, these are the guys who brought you The Darkness 2, and something quite epic would be they are the co-developer of the Unreal Tournament and Unreal Engine. Don't know if you get the epic reference there. So Warframe is currently a free-to-play game which is currently in open beta. It came out open beta not too long ago, I think somewhere in March 23rd if I'm not mistaken. Currently it's available on Steam and the official website. Good news is the game is only about 1.4 gigabytes, so it wouldn't take too long to download, even for those of you with slower internet connections. But for those of you with faster internet connections, I really recommend that you use Steam to download the game, because I noticed that when you download with the official website's client, things tend to be a bit slow and cap out at around 1 meg per second. So using Steam would definitely help you download the game a bit faster if you're a bit of a rush. So before I run into the game's gameplay, let's talk about the business model, the most important thing for every free-to-play game. So there are two credit systems, there are two cash systems in Warframe. The first being Platinum, and the second being credits. The Platinum being what you use as real money to use. You pay for real money and you get the in-game credit called Platinum, which will allow you to buy a certain number of items, and credits is what you get in-game, like you earn the credits in-game. So of course you can use Platinum to buy certain items like weapons and power-ups or color choices. Yeah, you're given the option to change your Warframe color and their weapons, but other colors are kind of locked. You're given just like a small selection of colors, so you have to buy the color slider using Platinum. That's a bit of a blow, but it's fine because it's just cosmetic, and it's actually quite good of a system, because there's nothing you can't really buy with the credits that you can't with the Platinum that you can't buy with the credits. That's what I'm trying to get at, as the game is not imbalanced. It doesn't force you to pay real money to get the good items, and it's a very skill-based game, as I'll tell you later on. So even if you do invest a lot of Platinum into the game and buy the best items, you might not necessarily be the best player. There's a lot of understanding to the mechanics of the games, how to play and how to play effectively. So it's a nice system to see that the Platinum there isn't so overrated, that everybody has to pay to win. It doesn't become a real pay to win system. Anything you want to get with credits, you can get with Platinum. Anything you want to get with Platinum, you might not necessarily get it with credits like boosters and stuff like that, and the color palettes like I explained, but they're not really that important. It's not really a game changer. But it's very key to note that Platinum rates right now are quite expensive. If you go and look on the Warframe website, it'll set you back quite a bit actually, and maybe it'll change in the future, but for now it's not. It's actually pretty expensive, and I really wouldn't recommend spending Platinum on the game at the moment. But there are people who do, and that shows how popular the game is. So I'll now move on to gameplay. Warframe's a really, really, really good and solid third-person shooter at its core, and that's one thing which I really emphasize a lot of when it comes to video games. Graphics may be important, but your core gameplay is where everything's at, and that's how Digital Extremes decided to develop Warframe. Warframe from the get-go, it has a very, very solid core of a shooter. You have really good co-op where you can play up to 4 players, or you can solo play 2 players, 3 players. It's really up to you. Playing with friends, it's extremely fun, but you can still play alone. It's going to be a bit more challenge, but it's not undoable. And as I said, it's a very solid first-person shooter. So the movements by your Warframes are really deft. It's really, really good. I'm not sure if it's motion captured, but you can really tell that the Warframes actually move very well, and you get a whole set of movements. Because what you're basically is, you're a space ninja, so you can do all sorts of cool movements like wall running, backflips and stuff like that. So yeah, the gameplay is definitely pretty good. So there are many game modes to play, like such as assassination, sabotage, spy. You get the hang of it, which is nice because it adds variation to the game. The map every time you play is randomized, but somehow things seem to get stale quite quickly because they reuse assets, such as you'll be like, hey, I've been down this corridor before, or hey, this room looks familiar, and you kind of realize that it's just a random map cobbled together, and it does get stale after a while. But the good news is that the devs really add a lot of content very frequently, so it's quite nice to see them add so much content, which I'm going to talk about. If you're wondering about the combat system, yes, the combat system is something which really stands out in Warframe. You're given skills, normal attacks, melee attacks, and they all feel very meaty, and the guns have sufficient recoil but not too much. It's all very controllable, but at the same time you don't feel as if the guns are too overpowered or too underpowered. There's really key things like accuracy, headshots giving bonus damage, shooting certain parts of the armor deals certain amount of damage, certain parts of the body deals extra damage, and sort of stuff like that. Stuff you learn either by reading from the wiki or actually playing the game over and over again. And there's also one thing I really like is the melee area strike. So each of your Warframe has a melee weapon which you can use to carry out some really deadly strikes up and close and personal. And depending on which side your weapon attacks, you can deal damage based on where you hit. Like if you hit the head, you're gonna deal more damage. And since it's a new system they recently added, which they add more hit areas, therefore you can actually slice them in half in different places, not just horizontally in half like it used to be. Now you can slice them in whatever manner conceivable that you want. So yeah, combat is good, movement is good. The amount of game maps you have it's randomized, and the game modes are really varied. There's a lot of game modes, and the nice thing is that it's a solar system style way of the mapping it out. So what you have is basically our solar system, and you start from, if I'm not mistaken, you start from Mercury, and you get to go to play all in other planets like Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Neptune. It's really fun. It's a nice thought out concept that you get to move from planet to planet to play different missions. Yeah, so that's very nice. Alright, so I'll move on to the graphics, and I have to say the graphics for Warframe is stellar. It's really good. It's one of the best looking free-to-play titles out there, barring maybe Blacklight Retribution and certain other games. Especially in the third-person category, it's really handsome of a game. The texture quality is high, the lighting quality is good, and even has DirectX 11 from the get-go, and this has been since closed beta. So ever since I've been playing the game since closed beta, and even since in closed beta, the game already featured DirectX 11. And keep in mind here, many AAA games such as Devil May Cry, which recently came out, didn't even feature DirectX 11, which goes to show to you how much effort the developers are actually making to add really good graphics into the game. The graphic fidelity is definitely top notch, and come on, it's a free to play game and you get DirectX 11. That's really very rare to see. As far as graphical options goes, you've got a real good list of graphical options to go through. You've got depth of field to be able to control motion, blur, bloom, HDR. I personally turn off bloom and HDR because they're too damn blinding. You have the weird color correction. It even has NVIDIA physics if you use an NVIDIA card, which adds really sweet particle effects. And something early on they didn't have in the closed beta, but recently added in, I guess, as a that's something everybody's asking for, which is the FOV slider. And the FOV slider is godsend. It really gives you so much more to see. And yeah, you gotta the graphical options for Warframe is just top notch, and it's not just the graphical options, but it's how well Digital Extremes work to optimize the game so much. If I'm not mistaken, the developers worked very closely with the boys at Nvidia to optimize the game, so much so that if you have an Nvidia card in SLI configuration nowadays, there is an SLI profile for Warframe already, and the game is still in open beta. And so, if I'm not mistaken, the profile even came out when the game was in closed beta. So that's really saying a lot in the time where you really don't see such a thing like that. And when I say it's very well optimized, I mean it's really, really, really well optimized. I've run it on some of my friends who use notebooks with older systems, and that game still gives you good frame rates, and I'm talking like 60 frames per second on lower settings, and it really works on any hardware you throw at it. Most, if not any hardware you throw at it, maybe barring a few Intel IGPs. But so that's a real plus one for cheapskates out there who don't really have such a good PC. I can't really, okay, it's kind of wrong to say cheapskates, but people who are less who have a lesser hardware. So it's really good to see that as an FTP game, they're looking out to every category, for people with high-end hardware, people with low-end hardware. So it's definitely a plus 1 point there. So now I'll talk about audio. Yeah, so audio would most probably be where Warframe's weak point is. It still needs a little bit work. You get a lot of repeated audio sounds, and a lot of them really sound studio made. And I mean, yeah, most sounds are studio made, but they just don't have the punch which you get from a lot of AAA games, like the explosion, the gunfire. The gunfire pretty much sounds the same for most rifles. They try to make a little bit of variation here and there by changing the pitch, but it just doesn't have the beefiness or the bass that you get from most shooters, and that's something I find really lacking. But new sounds are progressively being added in, such as combat dialogue, how the enemies communicate with each other, different weapon attacks, movements, different attack and movement sounds, which is very good. But there's one thing which I like a standout is about the audio is the score. The score is actually pretty good. It's quite like a drum heavy score, and I actually like it. It's pretty cool, but it's a bit limited. There's not many wicked scores out there. The audio does change depending on the mood of your game. Like if you're playing it stealthy, the game tends to pick a softer score, and if things really hit the ceiling, that's when the score really picks up. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the audio, I personally think, but that's really nitpicking. So let's talk about the last aspect of Warframe, which is really important to every online game, especially FTP, is the support in the community. And by far, so far, the community and the support you get from Warframe is absolutely fantastic. The game updates frequently by adding new maps, new weapons, graphical updates, texture updates, changing units, changing systems at times even, to make it easier for players to access the game. And it's really nice to have. I'm using really a lot. I gotta stop using really so much. And one thing you have to bring up is the hotfixes. They are done really quickly. On Reddit or on their official forums, whenever a problem pops up, within 12 hours a hotfix is out and it's already fixed the issue, which is nice to see from the developers. And on the forums, like I mentioned earlier, it's a nice place to be. When you ask a question, you get nice friendly comments, and everybody tries their best to help you out, giving you suggestions on how to play the game, how to tackle the game, and just overall good discussion. There's even a section which discusses the official lore of the game, which is nice because they don't really explain much of that in the game. So it's nice to see that some people are taking an initiative to sort of understand the not very explained lore of the video game, which, Warframe is one of those games, if and when you play, you realize that there can be a lot of lore and backstory to it. And the last thing I want to add about support is one of my favorite would be the fan site kit. The fan site kit is something I really like. I just had to stop for a moment to remember what to say. Developers actually released a fan site kit, which included this whole fan site kit. You can download it for free, and it contains various things like videos, pictures, banners, fonts, and stuff like that. I think once again there's fonts and sounds. to help you actually develop the fan site, to help spread the word about Warframe. So the wiki also uses the content from the fan site kit. So it's really nice to see it. That the developers are actually bothering to provide their fans something smart material, and it's not just official websites who can get it. Anybody can get their hands on this kind of thing. So it's really nice to see the community trying to give back. The YouTube page for Warframe is also something that is very active. They frequently post up developing videos and live streams. Something they've picked up recently is live streams showing players what they intend to add into the future updates, which is nice to see, because it's always nice to know the way the game is developing, and so far the game is definitely developing towards the positive side. Maybe they have to reconsider their platinum system, but otherwise, in conclusion, this game is a really solid free-to-play game. It's definitely up there with one of the top free-to-play games out there, like World of Tanks and Team Fortress 2 and Dota 2. I highly recommend you play this game, regardless of whether or not you're the kind who pays for games or not. I'm not going to discriminate anybody who chooses to pirate games, but if and when you certainly think that it's time to let it go and just have a roster of clean, legit games, even if you're still pirating, this is one of the games you just have to get. It's a great game, and just not playing it because you don't feel like it is missing out on a lot. Playing it with friends is extremely fun, and playing it public games is also extremely fun, because like I mentioned earlier, the community is good. You get nice friendly players online, good cooperation. Definitely go try the game. So that's been all for me. I'm Leon, and keep track for the next episode of the Cheapskate Guide for PC Gaming, where I may be talking about another game. Could be Team Fortress 2, could be Dota 2, could be anything. Till then, stay tuned.